Hi and welcome to Tsotsi by Fugard. I'm not going to try and look at the entire text, it's going to be too long. So I'm just going to look at the highlights and hope you'll go back and read the entire text for yourself. So here's chapter 1. The things to watch out here for are the gang. We'll meet Tsotsi's gang and who are they and what do we learn about each one. And there's the silence at the beginning, so we're building up to a crime. So watch for how tension is built up. Watch how the other people in the township are scared of these members of the gang. The style of the writing, watch the long sentences. And that I think is the point of just having me help you just get into the reading a bit before you go ahead and read on your own, just to get used to these long sentences. I think you can see that right from the beginning. Chapter 1. There had been a silence, as always happened at about the same time. A long silence when none of them moved, except maybe to lift up a glass and hold it high over their heads for the dregs to drip into their open mouths, what's left at the bottom of the bottle to drip into their open mouths, or to yawn and scratch or stretch and then slump back into their chairs, when one of them might scratch himself, another consider the voice of the woman in the backyard, the old woman who was scolding, rattling her words like stones in a tin, and all of them in their own time looking at the street outside and the shadows, wondering if they were not yet long enough. See what a long sentence that is. This interesting simile here, the old woman's words rattling like stones in a tin. So there's this silence. And here's the first mention of Tsotsi. And we've got to go right back to where we were. That's where the sentence begins. It was not a deliberate silence. There was no reason for it. Being at first just the pause between something said and the next remark. But growing from that, because they were suddenly all without any more words. Here's where the sentence starts. It ended, as always happened at about the same time, when the young one, the youngest of the four, the one who'd said the least, who'd sat there and listened to the other three, the one they called Tsotsi, leant forward and brought his slim, delicate hands together, the fingers interlocking in the manner of prayer. The other three looked up at him and waited, and there we're going to, in the next paragraph, see who the other three are. But here already we have a description of Tsotsi. It's the strong silent type, the one who had listened to the other three. I mean, he's a gangster, so it's ironic he has these slim, delicate hands, and that his fingers are in a manner of prayer. And as the first of the other three members of the gang, the one who doesn't fit in so very well. Before that, the one called Boston had been telling his story. Boston always had a story. Compared to Tsotsi, who's so quiet, there's other people in the gang who are not talkers like Boston is. He started early in the afternoon when they came together in Tsotsi's room and settled down with the first bottle of beer, telling it from then for a long time, almost to the hour when the shadows were long enough, and Tsotsi told them what they would be doing that night. So Tsotsi's the leader, he decides what the crime is going to be. He told it slowly, taking his time, the words coming in an easy rhythm between the swallows of beer, the belches or burps, the bother of opening another bottle, and the other interruptions, like leaving the room for the backyard, where you rested against the hot corrugated iron fence with an outstretched arm and pissed into the sand and watched it soak up and dry away before you'd left the spot, And that detail is the first of many that I call the gritty settings of this novel. It sounds like there's not a toilet at hand, so they go outside. There's going to be many more of these gritty settings, the uncomfortable or unluxurious places where this novel is set. In Johannesburg, Sophiatown, in I think the 1950s. So there was Boston talking. I'll skip a bit now as we turn over the page. So that was Boston. Here's Die Aap, which is Afrikaans for the monkey, the ape. So the name itself suggests he's not clever. Maybe he's physically strong. Tsotsi saw it all. The smile that hid fear. Is that Boston smile? The eyes that hid hate. Is that Die Aap? The face that hid nothing. Or is that the Die Aap? You I can trust, he said to himself, looking at Die Aap. You I must never turn my back on. And it was Butcher he looked at, the one who talks so much. Maybe that's the eyes that hid hate. And you, Boston. Oh, that's Butcher. So it's Butcher who's impatient to go out and do the deed, whatever the crime is going to be. So that's the eyes that hide hate, and Tsotsi feels he can never turn his back on. And this one, the smile that hid fear, is Boston. And you, Boston, you smile at me, and your smile hides fear. Boston doesn't like all the crimes that Tsotsi chooses. He doesn't take naturally to this. We find out later he wanted to be a teacher, and he's ended up in a gang. So Tsotsi decides and tells his decision. The trains, he said, let's take on the trains. Let's take a victim on the trains. Let's do a crime on the trains. Butcher agrees. Yeah, man, one on the trains. But it was Boston that Tsotsi was watching. And Boston knew it, and he kept his eyes down, no longer seeing the glass in his drink, and there's sweat on his forehead. Die Aap needed time. He repeated what Tsotsi had said. The trains, let's take one of the trains. Yeah. That was all he had to say. Boston looked up and says, why? Why not? Tsotsi's voice had an edge. We find out Tsotsi's chosen the trains on purpose because he knows Boston doesn't like jobs on the trains. Boston says, sometimes you pick one and he's got nothing. Tsotsi says, I never make a mistake. That's true, not once. Die Aap says, Butcher, and his name says a lot. Why all the talk? He liked it. He liked the plan. He doesn't want to talk about it. It's good, man. Yeah, man, it's good. Let's go. He wants action, not talking. But it's still Boston who's unwilling. Tsotsi's still waiting for Boston, still watching him. And his elusive eyes are going everywhere else except looking at Tsotsi. His dry lips, his pink tongue. He's nervous. He thinks of nothing that he can say, so he says, okay. Okay. Forced yawns and exaggerated indifference, pretending he doesn't care. And Butcher leaves last because he fetches a weapon from a box. It's a bicycle spoke. That's what he's going to use in the crime. That was the reason for his name. He's the one who does the killing. He had never missed. Butchers are experts in cutting up dead animals. He's an expert at killing people. So that's the introduction, and that sets up a tension already. We're about to see a crime. I think the point of this chapter is to see what bloody deeds Tsotsi is capable of. This next passage is about the township. And I think this goes with what I said earlier about gritty settings. The street is crooked and buckled. The way that they go in is sharp with stones and eyes. It's dusty. It's been a hot day. It should be a moment of relief between the hot day and the cooler night. Children are despondent or depressed because there are no more games to play. Women have nothing to do. It's getting cold. So there's a mood. But the second that they pass, these gangsters, that mood of relief and quietness passes. And we don't have that many mentions in this novel of apartheid and what the government was doing, but here's one that stays with us through the whole novel. The slum clearance men had been at work in that area, and a few more roofs were down, and the walls without doors and windows gaped like skulls in the fading night light. And you could still see the dust settling inside, while you remembered the disbelief, the angry impotence, the helplessness, the confusion in the faces that followed. So they would come in the middle of the night and break houses down and force people out of their houses. Tsotsi knows that he has power, that people are scared of him. Brave men step aside to let him pass. The shopkeeper hurries out to board up his windows and bolt his door. The big men, the brave ones, stood down because of him. The fear was of him. The hate was for him. It was all there because of him. He knew he was. That's how he knows he exists, is through the fear that he sees. Fear of him that he sees. That is why in his passing down the crooked street, men looked the other way and women wept into the dust. So he's quiet, he looks unassuming, but he has power and people are scared of him. Now we change gear, and this is where we meet who's going to be the victim. I feel so sorry for this victim. His name is Gumboot Dlamini, and he'd been chosen. He's chosen by Tsotsi, and we'll see why. But he never knew until it was too late. And this has got elements of apartheid in it too. Gumboot Dlamini has left his home out in the rural areas, and he's come to Johannesburg. He walked into the city to get a job and to send money home to his wife, whose name is Makulu. He told her he will be back. And it takes him so long to walk to the Golden City. His wife watches him until he goes out of sight. And she's pregnant. And that's why I feel so sorry for Gumboot Dlamini. She watches until he goes over the hill, and that's how he remembers her. How many days would it take to walk into the city in a car? The white man says it would be 2 days. So it would be many more walking, and he walks for 10 days. And then even more. And the nights grew cold. And his blanket was thin, and there were days of hunger. He worked once and bought himself a pair of shoes which he carried, wrapped up in his blanket. He lived through days of vast silence, tramping along the road with the unending veldt stretching away unseen on every side, tramping through the clouds of dust left by the hurrying cars, always silent, very alone, but never without hope. And finally he gets to the city, and he finds work on the mines, and he finds a room, and he works for a year. And those shoes that he bought, he used them, had them mended, used them again, and had them mended again, I think, and then bought a new pair. In some ways the year was short, other ways it was long. It's clear he can't write because he hires someone, or he plans to hire someone, to write him a letter to his wife saying that the year's almost over. in a week he'll be coming home to see her with the money that he saved. She's going to be seeing her husband again with his laugh and his hands and his hopefulness. This next passage is very poignant. But Gumboot was a man, and that has a second meaning. It has to do with death and the frailty of even those earthen cups that hold passionate draughts of laughter that can be broken, and all the life of a man spilt into the dust. In other words, it's so easy to die. He's about to take the train from work back to the township, and the gang are following him, and Butcher knows exactly where the heart is. Here are the reasons why Tsotsi chose Gumboot. Firstly, he smiled. He smiled because it was the weekend, and he thinks he's going home. And Tsotsi noticed the smile. The second thing was his tie, a bright red tie, flaming red with bolts of silver lightning playing on his chest. He bought it at lunchtime to impress his wife, but it was a bright tie and made it easy for Tsotsi to follow him at a distance, as the queue shuffled on its 1,000 legs like a millipede to the ticket office, also known as a shongololo. And there the third mistake. He takes out his pay packet. He bought the ticket with money from his pay packet. So he didn't just take out some coins separately. So gets in the train and then realizes he can't move either arm. The Arp is holding his arms down. Tsotsi smiles at the growing bewilderment or confusion on the big bastard's face, waiting for and catching the explosion of darkness in the eyes as Butcher worked the spoke up and into his heart. Tsotsi wants to see the look in his eyes as he dies, and then whispers something obscene about his mother. Why? He wants to see a disfigurement of the face in death. If there's a moment of hate, then the face is disfigured. The Arp still holding the man. Then all three of them stand around him to hold the body up. And I think what I missed somewhere along the line was where Boston... Oh, here's the pay packet. It's Boston's job to take the pay packet out of the guy's pocket. But Boston is also sick right through his brain, through his heart into his stomach, and was fighting to keep it down. This crime disgusts Boston. And when the train came into the station, I've skipped right ahead into the next chapter. How did I do so many pages ahead? When the train moves into the station, that's when they move away from his body. And those people left behind and the few who getting into the train find his body and see the end of the bicycle spokes, so the train doesn't go any further. So that's chapter 1, and we see what Tsotsi is capable of. A brutal and bloody murder. So it's shaping our attitude towards him. Most of us will be shocked by this bloody murder that Tsotsi has orchestrated, and Boston is so shocked. Our attitude to Tsotsi may change as the novel goes on, but right now Fugard has ensured that we are shocked by Tsotsi's brutal murder of Gumboot Dlamini. There's some questions. I'm wondering if I can find them now. You may get a copy of these questions. I don't think I can find them right now. One of them, I know the first one is about the 4 members of the gang. Anyway, that's Tsotsi Chapter 1. Hope you can go back now and read the whole chapter at your leisure. Thank you for your attention. Have a happy day.